Good morning, afternoon. I don't think evening, but I don't know. This is a global webinar. This is Lenny Kaiser with Clearance Jobs, and I'm so thankful for all of you for taking your time to attend today's live and very interactive webinar with Booz Allen. We're going to talk about taking your career to new heights and how to launch a space career with Booz Allen. There are a ton of great opportunities across the space sector today, a ton of great opportunities across Booz Allen. So we have a team of folks that are here and available to take your questions and also to talk a little bit about their career tracks and journeys. If you have questions, we encourage you to tune in and actually drop those in. There is a Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen, so drop those in throughout the call. If we don't get to them on our webinar today, we will follow up later on, so you'll have a chance to get those answered later on. So we just encourage you, any questions, comments, feedback you have, again, drop that into that Q&A chat box. Again, the idea is just to talk a little bit more, to get to know our panelists. And in that vein, I want to take the time to have each of them kind of briefly introduce themselves, talk about their careers and how they got to Booz Allen. We are joined today by Katrina Meyer, a senior lead engineer with Booz Allen, Nick Abercrombie, a principal defense space market and distinguished engineer with Booz Allen, Jeff Johnson, principal defense space market and also distinguished engineer with Booz Allen, Sarah Olson, Chief Technologist, and Babby Andrews, a recruiter with Booz Allen. So on that note, we're just going to go one by one. Tell me who you are, your role with Booz Allen, and maybe a fact about yourself that would be relevant or interesting to our audience today. So I want to start with you, Katrina. Can you talk a little bit about yourself and Booz Allen?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Katrina Meyer. I am in the Colorado Springs office. I have been with Booz Allen for 9 years, and I have essentially grown up while being at Booz Allen. So I began my career when I was an undergraduate studying mechanical and aerospace engineering. I was really a shy, introverted engineer, and now I lead several cybersecurity teams that perform risk assessments of space systems. And so when I say I grew up within Booz Allen, I mean that quite literally. I have gotten engaged, married, gotten my master's, transitioned from engineering to cyber, and recently had my beautiful daughter, all while being employed here. My passion is integrating engineering and cyber disciplines. I like to approach every challenge as if it were an engineering problem, draft it out, break it into bite-sized pieces, look at my knowns and unknowns, and then optimize it to get the best solution. And that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So same question for you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been with Booz Allen for 14 years, which is wild when you sort of think about that. I mean, talking about the Katrinas, I mean, I think I've had most of those life events here as well, which is really, really cool and is kind of a common theme amongst a lot of people I work with. My career at Booz Allen's been, fairly dynamic. I've changed a lot. So I used to work in the Los Angeles office. I now work in the Colorado Springs office. Booz Allen, while Booz Allen does sometimes provide those opportunities, that was really a self-driven thing of, hey, I really like the mountains and we'd like to be closer to Colorado. How do we make this work? And the company and my leaders really helped me do that. I've also changed a lot from my career in terms of, I always told people I wanted to be a technical person. I'm an aerospace engineer by training. I still tell people I'm a technical person. I'll slam my fist down on the table and they roll their eyes. But I, at some point, found myself in some program management roles, and turned out I loved it. I told people, don't tell anybody, but I'm having a good time. We'll just see where that goes. And that's grown into bigger and different programs, specifically around delivery programs, around space systems programs and classified space systems programs. And now I've taken on a portfolio of programs. So it's kind of gotten more into that sort of overall sort of portfolio management and business management. But still kind of, as Katrina talked about, trying to apply that engineering discipline and mindset to all of those problems. So it's been a real treat to change and grow with the firm.
Okay, and Sarah, I think you have Nick and Katrina beat in the number of years with Booz Allen, but I don't want to force you to say it. I think maybe.
It depends on the number of months that Nick has. So I'm about 14 and a half years. It'll be 15 in August. So not too far off now. Like Katrina, I've kind of grown up at Booz Allen. So I came here straight out of grad school. I was studying computer science in grad school, as well as cryptography and computer security, got my master's from UC San Diego. And I hadn't really heard much about Booz Allen, except that they came and did an information session at UCSD, and I was really intrigued by the variety of work and the diversity of the workforce. So it seemed like a good thing to give a try, and I've been pleasantly surprised ever since. So there's a lot of really interesting missions that we support here. I've stayed in cybersecurity throughout my whole career, but I've done a lot of different things in cybersecurity within that time span. And now I'm focusing primarily on space cybersecurity as well as software security. So great place to grow your career here. You're going to learn a lot about that through the rest of today's session. Fun fact for me, I am a big fan of cats. I have only 2 cats, but I do agility competitions with one of the cats. So she goes through the little obstacle course and tries to do it on a fast time. So lots of fun there. Everyone has cool hobbies here, and everyone's welcome to bring their whole self to Booz Allen.
Okay, Sarah's now my favorite person on the webinar, and I'm gonna need to see that cat. I'm just saying, next step, forget the follow-up about Booz Allen careers. We all want videos of Sarah's cats now. I mean, at least I do. Okay, same question for you, Jeff, about how you got your start in career at Booz Allen.
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name's Jeff Johnson. I've been at Booz Allen for 15 years, and right now I'm helping lead the Los Angeles office, where I lead a set of engineering and integration contracts with the Department of Defense, and specifically the U.S. Space Force, the new Space Force. Space Systems Command is in Los Angeles. They acquire and build all of the satellites for the military. And so we help them do sort of the system of systems, integrating across those different satellites and ground stations and user platforms to help make sure that those space systems sort of come together to deliver our military the capabilities they need to fight. And I've been here 15 years. I spent 4 years at Northrop Grumman before coming to Booz Allen. I started off my career as an electrical engineer, sort of working on circuits for avionics boxes that go into missiles. And I learned about systems engineering, and I was sort of interested in it. I was also interested in management consulting, so I was kind of thinking about like where I wanted to go with my career next. And then I found Booz Allen and discovered that they sort of did all the stuff I wanted to do. They were at that time a consulting company that was getting into engineering, working for at that time the Air Force at this higher level where instead of sort of working on a circuit card that goes into a box, that goes into a missile, that goes into a system, I could sort of be at that system level and work directly with colonels and generals and executives, sort of making the big decisions that really sort of impact the trajectory of these programs and of our national security. And so that was what really inspired me to come to Booz Allen. The culture is fantastic. I think you guys are going to hear more about that as we go, and that's certainly what kept me here. Fun facts, I don't have very many. I used to have hobbies once upon a time, but now I've got kids, so their hobbies are my hobbies. And my hobbies have kind of become more old man hobbies, like reading and trying to keep my belt loops in check. But I'll stop there before I embarrass myself.
Hey, don't knock reading. You know me very long. I'm gonna mail you a book. It's like my MO. Okay, so same question for you, Babby. Kind of talk about your career at Booz Allen, how you got your start.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am a technical recruiter here at Booz Allen. I currently cover our digital recruiting efforts across Midwest, Mountain, and Central South states. But I've supported Wash Metro, I've supported national security teams, aerospace, all around. So I've had the opportunity to really see a lot of Booz Allen. I hope to have and plan to have as many years as this team here. But I joined Booz Allen 2 years ago, and I came from a staffing firm and was really drawn to Booz Allen because of the impact it's made every day here for our clients. So it's been an awesome 2 years. I'm excited to catch up to this crew. A fun fact, I skied before I walked, and I'm super grateful that I moved out to Denver with my fiance 2 years ago. So two good decisions in 2 years.
I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about the Booz Allen mission, the missions that you do in the cleared space, and specifically around space. I think that's kind of a hot topic. We have a ton of interest in space careers at clearance jobs, but not always a ton of clarity about what those look like. So can you describe more about what your teams are looking for, what kind of challenges that you're tackling, and why Booz Allen is like a good partner for doing this kind of work. I want to start with you, Jeff, on that.
Yeah, so the Space Force is relatively new. I think it's a couple years old. Really, the organization that became the Space Force has been around much longer, but space has become a much more important domain over the past few years, both commercially with a lot of companies pursuing different commercial interests in space, providing space launch capabilities that didn't exist 10 years ago, and of course, our adversaries around the world are doing things in space because they're recognizing the importance of it, and so it's become a warfighting domain where before space was sort of a sanctuary. Now the bad guys are starting to do things in space that we're seeing and need to be sort of prepared to defend against. And so in our secure space, in our secure work, a lot of it is around figuring out how to help the Space Force defend space. And so we're watching what the bad guys are doing. We're analyzing those threats, developing requirements for our systems and our space forces to help figure out like how do we defend against those, and then developing systems to fight back. And so we can't obviously go into too much detail about what all those things are, but some of them exist in space, some of them on the ground, some of them in cyberspace. And we have a pretty diverse business where we're working on all of those problems in different ways, and people supporting for different clients and different contracts. And one of the things we try to do with our people, especially here in LA and Colorado, but really across the firm, is hire a very diverse set of people to tackle those problems. Because one of the things that differentiates us from our competitors is we don't hire a bunch of engineers that all kind of have the same background from the same place and look at things the same way. We like to hire engineers and people with a very diverse set of backgrounds that include non-engineering skills, even some kind of out there skill sets that you wouldn't think would apply to an engineering project, but it turns out you really need that sort of different opinion. And so we bring those new ideas to bear on these hard problems that the Space Force is trying to tackle.
Yeah, I want to kind of have that same question to you, Nick, and talk a little bit about why Booz Allen is a really special place to work within the space division. I think you admitted the last time we chatted to being a bit of a space geek. So I don't know if you're willing to admit that again. I've already outed you, but maybe kind of speak to that, as a technologist, a tech professional, but also the chance to kind of use those skills for what's, pretty cool to be able to look at your work go up into the sky.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, right? So Jeff talked about looking at things from a broader perspective and really having national impact. One of the cool things about Booz Allen is we really do that whole gamut, right? So in some areas we're doing that broader picture requirements, and even some places we're looking 2 years out. There's groups within my organization where we're supporting government clients looking 15 years out, and how do we do future fight in space, which is really cool. We also have teams that are working on like building the product for today. So we're building stuff, we're delivering capabilities, we're building systems for the government. And so if that's kind of your jam, so to speak, right, you can get involved there. If you're really into sort of the next level thing and the future planning, you can get involved there. So it really spans across the sort of the horizon of what we do, which is really, really neat. And people find kind of their niche, right? So it's funny. So Jeff and I talk a lot. Jeff, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he talks about really liking that big picture. I really like building the thing, right? So my thing is a much smaller piece of Jeff's vision, but I have a fun time building the thing. And there's Jeff and I have both been really happy and really successful at Booz Allen, and that's pretty neat. I think the other thing you mentioned that I wanted to say from a space perspective is a lot of the stuff we do for space, frankly, it's applicable a lot of places, right? So I've got teams building infrastructure and IT infrastructure. I know Katrina does a lot of cybersecurity work, right? Well, cybersecurity work's applicable if you work for Bank of America, right? That they're not, as far as I know, like they're not doing space stuff. But there's something extra cool about making the mission matter. There's something that's a little bit extra fun about, hey, the stuff that I'm building is tied in supporting this space mission, which is a growth area, which is a future area. it frankly is kind of just cool, right? Like, you know, I could build an IT system for anybody, but I'm building a classified IT system to support this really cool space mission. That gets me up in the morning a little bit more than if I was building a thing for, no offense to people that are into banking, but this is like not my thing. So if you were just building an IT system for, I'll pick on Bank of America, for Bank of America, it's just not as much fun. It's just not as cool, frankly. And Booz Allen's really, really into it. You've got a lot of people that are very excited about it, and we continue to sort of invest and be close with our clients in that growing mission area.
Well, I think that's part of the secret sauce for Booz Allen, right? Because we know technologists in this space have options. Like you can work a lot of different places, you can make money working in a lot of different things, but it seems like your culture really tries to tie people into the mission and tries to connect people to opportunity, and you kind of get to see that, and you can't always guarantee you're going to get that organizationally other places.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, going back to kind of, we've got people that cross the gamut, right? There are people in our organization, in fact, one of them sits right next to me, and every day he's in my office and he's like, it's the mission, Nick, it's the mission, Nick, it's the mission, Nick, it's the mission. And, you know, you technology people, you're like, don't forget about the mission, don't forget about the mission. And that's super, right? And I think you don't see that at other firms because, you know, you're very focused on, I'm building the system, I'm doing this thing, and it's very easy to lose focus on what you're doing that for. At Booz Allen, we are very, very focused on being close to our clients and being close to the mission, no matter what aspect of that horizon we're doing. And that makes it a little bit more meaningful, and I think it makes it more powerful to feel that impact.
Yeah, so Babby, can you speak to that from a recruiting perspective? Because you're also trying to hire people and tie people into those missions. Maybe what does that look like?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy every single day recruiting here because of just what Nick said. There's a passion and excitement in all of the work we do. So I've worked on a ton of different types of roles with a ton of different programs, talking to veterans daily, talking to people who are excited about, specifically I'll touch on space, love working on our NASA programs to really have an impact there. I wouldn't say my recruiting approach changes much from division to division, but depending on the program and clearance level that's needed, I think everybody brings just such a cool perspective to the table, and it's just a lot of fun to work with because our hiring managers are excited about what we're doing for our clients every single day, and it makes it easy to talk to candidates about. So.
And yeah, Sarah, I wanted to get your perspective on that too, because I know, I mean, I've seen you have a rocket at your house or something. I'm not a space professional, so I don't know. So even as a chief technologist at Booz Allen, you feel kind of attached to that work, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think I had, you know, probably a you know, moderate level of interest in space as a kid because space was cool. The shuttle was going around. The shuttle was cool. But it's not something I studied in college. So I think I took like Astronomy 101 as one of my, you know, science labs that I needed to do for my curriculum. But I was really focused on computer science and cybersecurity. And I don't think I even realized that the Los Angeles area was a space nexus until I had that presentation on campus. And actually, at the start of my career in Booz Allen, I was not doing space projects. So I was supporting some folks out east that were involved with other types of programs. And space was kind of a growing interest that I evolved into. So not quite the space geek as Nick was. But I started learning more about some of the work we had going on with the local clientele. I did my first project. I really started learning more about the missions and how they relate to our national security, as well as other areas of contribution like GPS and weather and things like that. And it really fascinated me, and I really started embracing it a lot more, just kind of reflecting the diversity of work that we have here and how much you can explore and learn, even if you're not starting on a specific project in a specific domain. You have that ability to pivot here. And so, you know, for me, it was more of an evolution. It wasn't something I knew from the get-go that I wanted to do. But like Nick, you know, you try something out and you're surprised how much you like it, and then you keep embracing and going down that path.
Well, I love that. And that's kind of the recurring theme too, because we keep doing webinars with Booz Allen and we see folks who have really built careers and stayed with the firm. And I think that's worth noting. Like that doesn't come easily and that's not typical in our industry. So when you come and you're able to see and pursue new opportunities and admit like, hey, I actually like this is not what I envisioned when I was a kid doing necessarily, but I've had really cool opportunities to learn and grow. So Jeff, I'd like to get your perspective a little bit on that too. Like how have you stayed energized with projects through staying with with the company for 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's experience at Booz Allen is different. That's one of the great things I think about Booz Allen. Unlike, there's pros and cons, but some companies have a very rigid sort of structure and a very rigid career path. And so okay, this year I'm a this, and next year I'm going to be a that. At Booz Allen, for better or worse, we don't really have that. It's a very agile organization, and so you get to sort of create your own career path. And so for people that are entrepreneurial and sort of do well with a little bit of sort of dynamicism, I guess, to the environment, you can sort of see a problem and solve a problem and kind of take your career where you want it to go. And so I think, most of the people that have sort of moved up the totem pole at Booz Allen, they've all done it a different way. They've all done it sort of their own way. And I don't think that if they were to rewind the clock, they wouldn't have been able to tell you like how they were going to do it at the beginning. It sort of worked out the way it worked out. And so for me, I like a little bit of variety in what I do. I don't like to stay on the same project forever. And so for me, my experience at Booz Allen has been, I've basically done something different almost every year I've been here. Even if I'm on the same project, my role has changed. So I'm constantly challenged. I'm constantly learning new things. I like to be a generalist versus a specialist. So I try to learn as much as I can on one project, 1 year, and then pivot and learn as much as I can about the next thing the next year. And it sort of made me into this pretty well-rounded engineer and a well-rounded business person. And that's another cool thing about Booz Allen is, whereas at other companies, they've got their engineers in one place and their program managers in another and their business developers in another and their finance people. At Booz Allen, everyone's expected to be a leader, in various ways. And everyone can grow as a leader in various ways. And so you'll find yourself, managing people or managing money or chasing new business or leading technical projects, I think much earlier in your career than you would at a lot of places, because Booz Allen doesn't really recognize, we have levels, but we don't really care what level you are. I remember very early in my Booz Allen career as a senior consultant, which is kind of our second level up, being invited into rooms with very senior people and being treated as a peer at the table just because I was bringing cool ideas and I was bringing energy and I was doing the work, and just sort of being respected in that way. So that kind of touches on a few things there, but those are some of the big things that have motivated me here at Booz Allen.
No, I love that. I mean, I've been a big advocate for the career lattice versus ladder, and I think it's a really progressive way to think about your career, and it sounds like that's definitely what Booz Allen advocates. Also, the autonomy and the entrepreneurial aspect, that seems to come out as a common thread. I read some article, probably clickbait, like Harvard Business Review or something. It wasn't on clearance jobs, but they talked about the secret to not having burnout culture at work was that autonomy, being able to have an entrepreneurial attitude, being able to move within the company. And I think that's why you see, a lot of folks, we supernova out, to tie it back to space, after a few years in the government contracting cycle, because you are working on contracts. But if you get that flexibility within your culture to move around, I think that can help maintain that longevity and give you that work-life balance. So I wanted to talk to that. That's my next question. Kind of talk about the rewarding aspects of your career and how you balance kind of, I don't love the term work-life balance, but how you balance what you enjoy in your personal life with pursuing professional success, and how Booz Allen helps you do that. Katrina, can I ask you that first? And then I'm going to throw you under the bus too, Nick, since you clearly have a couch behind you. He's balanced.
Yeah, so maintaining work-life balance can definitely be a challenge, especially for people that have a tendency to be workaholics. I think the flexibility in the workplace is very, very important, especially for being a working mom. So being able to communicate with my leaders that, hey, I have this schedule and I really need to stick to it for drop off and pick up for my daughter is very important. So I think establishing communications, being comfortable with your leadership to have those conversations, and having leadership that does support the ability that, you know, life and family come first before the job. And so that's very important. And I've always felt that from my leadership here.
And so same to you, Nick. How do you, because somebody told me you're on the ski patrol, so you somehow have time for that.
I ski patrol when I was in LA. Now I have small children, or medium-sized children. I don't know, they get bigger as they go. So I don't ski patrol. That's probably back in my future, but we ski a lot, right? So we're actually about to hit 30 days this year of skiing, so I'm pretty stoked about that. As the kids get older, we get more, which is a really big deal for us. And I think it all comes down to, like Katrina talked about, you know, communication is a big deal. But also, like, there's different seasons in people's lives, right? Like, I mean, I've worked a proposal where I've been in the office at 2 in the morning. I'm not going to say that we don't work hard, right? Everybody, you know, we work hard, and that's true for a lot of people at Booz Allen. And I'm not saying, oh gosh, that's the norm, but like, everybody goes through ups and everybody goes through downs. But going back to the leadership piece is, I find that the leaders I've had at Booz Allen, and the leader that I try to be at Booz Allen, is my leaders have held me accountable to taking care of myself, basically, right? So, I mean, I'll just give you an example, right? So during COVID, I had this like I call it a mini little meltdown. It was fine, like not a big deal. But you know, like my kids were basically home, right? Like my wife works, like how are we gonna do this, right? The kids start at 5, so I was starting work at like 5 a.m. I was working like 5 a.m. to noon. I couldn't figure out how to get the hours in. I was just like, it was not a good situation for me. And my boss at the time was amazing, and she's just like, you don't seem okay, you know, and like let's just talk about that. And frankly, like, here are the options for you. And so I will just say I went to part-time. I mean, not a lot, but I dropped my hours down to, I think it was like 80% for 3 months until I kind of could like figure that out. And by all accounts, it's been good for my career, right? As opposed to being sort of this negative thing, right? I've been able to move up and keep going and still have tremendous amounts of impact and respect across the office. And I've had other, you know, people that I worked for where I just said, hey, I'm struggling to sort of manage this, and what's my role? And they're like, look, I was in the middle of moving to Colorado, and they said, maybe this just isn't the thing for you to take on right now, right? Like, come back to it. Like, we want your input, but maybe, you know, and that sort of, not just being okay with sort of that flexibility, but more embracing it and honestly holding me as an individual accountable, which is what I've tried to do with my team, is so meaningful, right? Because other places it's like, well, you know, go figure your stuff out and call me later, right? Whereas here it's really about that. How do we get the most out of you at work? And in order to do that, sometimes we need less of you, right? And to go through those seasons. So that's a really big deal for me, and it's part of the reason why I'm still here after however many years we've been thrown around.
No, I love that. And that's a sign too. Like, sometimes you need people outside of your, you know, to see how you're actually performing at work, and those honest conversations to do that. So I love that you have an example of where, you know, somebody in leadership was actually willing to tell you that it was okay to take a pause, rather than telling you just keep plugging away. And it takes a good culture to be able to notice that. If it's just about the deliverables and it's not about the human, then they're not going to see that. So we had a question come in from Derek. He's asking if you can talk more about some of the specific missions that you support. So is it surveillance, reconnaissance, collision avoidance? Derek knows more about space than I do, clearly. I don't know if Jeff or Katrina can talk to this, or Nick, or anybody here. I know Babby probably has some thoughts too, and also asked about the education and training that might be needed if you don't necessarily have space experience and you want to take on some of those roles.
Yeah, I can take a shot at the first part of the question for sure. So in terms of the missions we support, in various ways, I think we support almost all of the missions of the Space Force, as well as the missions of NASA and other space clients as well. But like here locally in LA, we have a big presence supporting the GPS mission. So for position, navigation, and timing. We also have a lot of people supporting military satellite communications. So satellites that help generals and presidents and things talk to each other in times of war. We have folks supporting ISR missions, so intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Space command and control, so like how do you can kind of picture the picture the command and control center where the general's sitting and he's sort of telling everybody how to maneuver different satellites and different other assets in a space war. We're helping to design those kinds of capabilities. On the NASA side, we have people supporting the space station, the Artemis program, the new space shuttle program that's going on. And then in the intelligence community, we have people supporting various other space systems that probably can't talk much about, but they're also in the ISR mission area.
Awesome. And then, so Babby, can you speak to that? Are there certain education or degree requirements that or certain levels of experience that you're particularly looking for?
Yeah, great question. It varies. So I think depending on the position, program, and clearance level that are required, obviously there might be a difference there. We do, and I know we're going to touch on this in a little bit with the slide, we do have a ton of opportunity for training, upskilling. We also have a lot of flex ed opportunities for candidates. So once you join Booz Allen, there is a lot of mentorship, a lot of opportunity to upskill, reskill, to make yourself be able to move fluidly within the company. But I think education-wise, you can usually see what the education is asking for on the position. So take a look at that. There is some flexibility there sometimes. So the recruiter will walk you through that throughout the process. But it's definitely varying, I would say, on program and position, but a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah, and that does tie into our next question, which is on our agenda. And also, John and Juan, I see both of you. You both asked the question about, hey, I'm a veteran. I'm transitioning. I have military experience, but not necessarily direct as a technologist in this space. And then also the question again, hey, I've spent a career in law enforcement. I recently got a degree in cybersecurity. I'm working on certifications. What does that look like? So kind of talk about maybe even how, once you're with Booz Allen or as a part of that process, how you get invested in upskilling, reskilling, and leveling up for talent.
Yeah, so great question. We work with a ton of veterans. That military experience is awesome. We love it. There's a ton of veterans here at Booz Allen. So that transition, your recruiter's there to also help you through that. So obviously the finding a new job can be daunting. But while you're at Booz Allen, we invest in our people in a lot of different ways. We provide different training, mentorship programs to as I mentioned, upskill and reskill. So we've got that Flex Ed, which is our tuition reimbursement program, Degreed, which has over 2,000 training resources at your fingertips. You can do it at your leisure at any time if you're interested in just learning more and maybe making a move within Booz Allen to another position. You have your career manager who's there to really help guide you through that process and get you to where you want to be. We also have a tech excellence program, which it's an intensive cohort-based program. So you have the opportunity to upskill in the fundamentals of data science and a ton more. So there's a lot of opportunity if you're learning a new skill and interested in expanding on that. Booz Allen has a lot to offer there. So.
Yeah, and so Sarah, can you speak to that from your career track? You're a technologist, so I'm sure you have not been static in your career. You wouldn't still be here. You clearly are in it to win it because you know how to teach a cat tricks. Feel amazing. So what does that look like in your career? How has Booz Allen helped to invest in you, or how have you shown initiative? What does that look like?
You know, the reference to my cat really made me think of something. Yes, I teach the cat tricks, but I'm really figuring out what motivates the cat. And it's the same thing here. So I like to say that Booz Allen is a little bit of a choose your own adventure. So you're going to start here on some project, right? And you're going to get the lay of the land. You're going to see what else is out there. You're going to get exposure to all sorts of things. And as you're doing that, your career goals might change. So with that career manager construct that Babby referenced, your career manager is actually working with you to set your career goals every year. And they're dynamic. You might have some that you remove throughout the year, others that you add based upon what's going on in your life and what interests you. And that's probably fairly distinguished from a lot of other places, or there might be a very well-defined career track that says, you know, if you want to get to the next level, these are the 3 things you have to do. We do have guidelines for each level, but there's a lot of flexibility within that. So your career manager is really helping you to figure out what makes sense for you on your path with where you're at now and where you want to progress and at what pace you want to progress. So, you know, Nick, speaking to the seasons, not everyone's ready to like hit it and get a promotion every year, right? Some people need to take their time. Maybe they're working part-time or they have school on the side, whatever it may be. And so that's a really interesting construct that we have in place to kind of help everyone pick their path. And then we tap into all those resources that Babby referenced, right? So we got the flex ed and degreed and everything else. Beyond that, we also have a community for our main functional areas. So we have what we call TXGs, technical exchange groups. Anyone can join any TXG and participate either as an observer or potentially as a presenter. So these are open across the entire firm. You can learn about what capabilities we have, what people are doing in other areas, other offices, and just get engaged. So I've really valued that. That's actually how I've found a lot of my opportunities in the past, was just kind of paying attention to what's going on across the firm and expressing interest. And then once I kind of get my foot in the door, figuring out, you know, how do I bring myself up to speed? Sometimes that's self-study, sometimes it's just talking to the right people, and sometimes it's on the job training.
Yeah, and Katrina, I wanted you to take that as well. So you're a lead engineer, you're working with other engineers. How do you kind of build that culture as a team in terms of upskilling or leveling up skills?
Absolutely. So as Babby talked to, there's so many resources for building technical skills, but I like to emphasize soft skills just as much as technical skills. You can be an expert in any subject area, but if there's difficulty in articulating that knowledge, then it's less beneficial to our team and our clients. So in this day and age, there are so many resources available. One of my favorites actually is podcasts, and Booz Allen has a great podcast where they talk about core ethics and values. But even beyond the Booz Allen podcast, you can listen to podcasts from everything from TED Talks to career leadership and growth, and even also the technical skills. And this is also an easy way to add learning into your normal routine, because you can easily listen to these on your drive to work or running regular errands. So definitely a variety of resources, but that's one of my favorite kind of non-traditional ways to build skills.
Awesome. We're getting more questions in kind of about also around the skills. So aviation, and talking about, hey, a lot of these sound like cyber. So are there career opportunities that aren't quote unquote traditional cyber? That's like a Lindy question because I'm very not technical. So maybe Jeff, can you speak to that a little bit, or Nick?
Sarah.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I think Sarah might have a better answer than either of us.
All right, I will take it. Even though I'm a cyber person, part of the benefit of being engaged with cyber, as Nick spoke to, is that it really cuts across every domain. And so I've had the pleasure of kind of seeing what we have across the firm where cyber is helping with all these other projects where cyber is not the focus. So for avionics, we have a whole division within the firm that we call Air Power. Cool name. They basically do all the planes and jets and helicopters and everything that's flying that's not quite up to the low Earth orbit level. And I can't speak intelligently about avionics, but I can say we do the gamut there as well in terms of systems engineering, program organization, logistics, really a little bit of everything. There's a depth of expertise and a depth of engagement. I think we probably just have less of that directly in El Segundo and Colorado Springs. But we do have collaboration. So one other thing I value about the firm is our ability to kind of reach across geographies, reach across different markets, and just really bring the best team to bear to solve the problem. So some of my folks that are working cybersecurity or have software development backgrounds are working with people out in Oklahoma on avionics problems. So it's hopefully that addresses the question, but we do kind of have a melting pot here of collaboration.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in to say, I mean, without going into too much detail, just for the space of brevity, I mean, on my team, I have software engineers, systems engineers, test engineers. I've got program managers, I've got configuration managers, I've got intelligence analysts, I've got space domain awareness expertise, I've got mod sim folks, I've got digital engineering, which we haven't talked about, but a really, really big presence in digital engineering and model-based systems engineering. Somebody's gonna be upset because I missed somebody. Oh, I've got a data management SME as we go forward in terms of a group of people, but it really does go across the gamut. So yes, Booz Allen has a huge presence in cyber, and it's a really cool place to be if cyber's your thing, because as Sarah talked about, we do it really across the board. So yes, in space, but all over the place. But all of those other functions are things that we are, hiring for, looking for, actively, engaging from a skill set perspective. So that's definitely there as well.
We've had a few questions coming about opportunities that are not necessarily in Colorado or LA, because folks have heard those so far. So can you maybe speak to that? And then also, we always get the question post-COVID, hey, we know that some people have to work in SCIFs, but what is the mix of kind of like on-site, hybrid, remote? I'm sure it's going to vary contract by contract, but can anybody speak to that?
Yeah, I can take a shot. So Booz Allen has offices all over the country and even across the world. Anywhere where there's a significant U.S. federal government presence, you're almost certain to find a Booz Allen office. Washington, D.C. is kind of the home headquarters. So we've got several offices around the D.C. area, Maryland, Central Maryland, Northern Virginia, et cetera. But we've got a huge office in San Diego. There's an office in Houston, Denver, Seattle. I think there's a small office in Chicago, St. Louis, Georgia, Florida, really, just about everywhere. And all those offices sort of serve different clients doing different things. And then internationally, we've got, I'm not going to get them all right, but I know we've got offices in Europe because I've transferred people there. Basically, wherever there's a combatant command, you'll also find Booz Allen people. So where you find the warfighters. And then in terms of the mix of sort of remote versus in the office, it certainly depends on your project. Booz Allen leaned forward very quickly in the COVID timeframe in terms of sort of bringing people home and giving them the kit that they needed to be effective from home. You see, some folks work classified programs, and so they have to be in the office because you can't do classified work at home. Others kind of work for their day. So like if one day they need to be at the client site, they go into the client site. They got to be in the Booz Allen office, they'll go to the Booz Allen office. If they look at their calendar and all the meetings they're going to be on are all Zoom meetings, and they can stay home. So it really kind of depends. And the one I think great thing that's come out of COVID, despite all the bad things, is where before COVID, a lot of teams and a lot of our clients weren't really receptive to remote work. Like they wanted their people to be right there. They want to be able to reach out and touch you. Both Booz Allen and our clients, I think, have come around quite a bit. Where now, I've got several people on my team that have moved during COVID, and now they're in Tennessee or Maryland or Georgia or Florida, still working on projects here in LA. There's a little bit of a time difference, and that is somewhat of a challenge sometimes, but it can also be a benefit. But we're really trying to tap into the talent wherever it is, and if we can find a way to bring it to our clients have become a lot more open to that.
We've got a ton of great geeky questions around some of the tertiary topics like AI and blockchain or research, or I have all these other skills. How do those tie in? The awesome thing about being on this webinar and being with Booz Allen here is because even if it's not tied to space or aerospace today, there's going to be a lot of tie-ins. And if you take nothing away from this, hear from these folks here is that as a technologist or an engineer or whatever career path you find yourself in, if you've got a passion point around it, it sounds like one of these folks will help tie you into that. So maybe can any, Sarah or Katrina, would you want to jump in on that too? Kind of talk about how, you've tapped into different passion points that have led you to different career opportunities or experiences that maybe you wouldn't even have anticipated. Because again, I'm kind of getting that chatter like, hey, I have XY experience in this. How do I connect the dot?
You can go first, Katrina.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, sorry, I thought you said I was going to go first, and I thought you meant you. Sorry. For me, yes, I definitely, my background's in engineering, and I transitioned my career to cyber. Now, my boss likes to say that that means I was enhanced because I'm able to pull from those different skill sets for my work. And I think that's very true for a lot of the contracts and clients that we support. As Nick and Jeff talked to, there's a variety of ways that we can solve problems through different disciplines and different people's expertise. So having that diversity in thought and that different background and skill set offers so many opportunities to solve problems in ways that maybe we didn't anticipate or the client didn't anticipate with just their knowledge in one certain area. So I think if you do have a variety of expertise and you want to go in a different direction, that's highly valued by this company. And that's really awesome because it allows you so much more opportunities to then make your skill set a melting pot and being able to pull from all kinds of different resources to solve a complex problem. So Sarah, I'll hand it to you now.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking about diversity, within the El Segundo office, we probably have about 50 people that are cyber focused. I'm just going to use this as an example. There's 250 other people that are doing other things. But within those 50 people, they probably came from about 40 different backgrounds, roughly. And everyone kind of got into it a different way. So, I was coming from a more technical perspective with computer science. But I was focused on academic cryptography for like 2 years before I came to Booz Allen, and I jumped back into the software side of things, which I had kind of put on hold. So you can pull from your past in different ways, and don't be afraid to grow in new directions. We have other people that came from completely non-technical backgrounds. So I think someone was an architect in the past, and she's now one of the top performing leads on one of our projects because she had the diligence to kind of sit down, learn the domain, and then figure out where her strengths and her background could best contribute. And so it's really just that recognition of what are your skills, what do you bring to the table, how do you kind of fit into the team overall to make your contribution, and how do you know when to tap on your colleagues, right? So even though I've been here almost 15 years, there's some areas that I just don't quite have the right background or depth in, right? But I do know enough to know who to tap into or who to bring along with me to balance out my unique skill sets. So it's very collaborative. It's really having that awareness of the team dynamic. And if you do see an area that you want to grow into, find a mentor. So find someone that's already doing that. Ask them for advice. Is there a certification that you should aim for? Is there a book you should read? Do they have a favorite podcast? Can you shadow them for a bit? And so just really bringing all of that to bear, and everyone's very willing to help out here.
So this kind of ties into what you just said, Sarah, and I'm going to point this to you, Nick, because I think it also tied to what you said earlier. But Catherine asked a question that's like basically my love language here. How is success measured on your teams at Booz Allen? And then also, is there like a common management style? And I think we can look at the government contracting space and often like just assume it's based on billable hours, right? So I loved your example to say like it's not just about that. And if that was all the culture that you had going, you wouldn't be staying there for 10 or 15 years. So whether it's your teams or just your experience, kind of what does success look like? And then is there kind of a common management theme across Booz Allen?
So let me talk about success first. I'll call it impact, right? And that's when we have conversations about like, okay, well, who's getting promoted, who's where, and how do you how do you give people raises and all these kind of things, right? The biggest word I hear in all of those conversations is impact. And it's a little bit generic, but what I mean is you can have impact in a lot of different ways, right? So you can have impact as a people leader, right? I have people who like, yeah, business is fine, all these kind of stuff, but oh my gosh, there's 45 people that feel like they owe their career to that leader, and that person's been really, really successful because that's their sweet spot, right? There's other people that are, oh my God, I don't know, like rain, like you put them in a room and all of a sudden like money flows. I don't know what happens, right? But like just contracts show up and money flows and it's amazing, right? And so now sometimes those people are also good people leaders. I don't want to disparage that, right? But that's their level of success. There's other people, and I'll put myself in, well, put myself in that camp and say I'm good at that. I'll say I like that in the sense of they're just awesome at execution, right? So you can put this person in charge of a 5-person team, 10-person team, 20-person team, 100-person team. They're going to go off and execute. They're going to hit that mission. They're going to serve our clients. And basically they're winning us more work and they're keeping people because boy, they really know how to execute. And so I know that's like everything, is measured in success kind of answer. But the truth is it really is, right? I mean, there's always going to be some bottom line, right? Like if your team has no work, right? If there's no billability, right? If your team has no work, well, that's not going to do really well. If you're, completely garbage and you don't treat people well, you're not going to do well as across the board, right? So there's sort of a minimum threshold, but you can really excel in a whole bunch of different areas, right? You can be a technologist, and you can be sort of, as you grow in your career, you can be like the best at what you do, and you'll have success and be promoted and be given raises and all these things for that, because your impact, and again going back to the impact term, is so broad because of your skill sets. So hopefully that kind of answers that. It's a lot of different things, and it's really where you wanna either focus or where you want to put your energy.
I love it. And so we've had a few questions asked about the application process or what should candidates do. I mean, I think that's a common question today, like, hey, do I just go to your website and apply? If I really want to set myself apart or stand out for these roles or positions, how do I do that? So Babby, can you take that?
Yeah, so we've created a recruiting approach to mirror what we've all talked about what it feels like to be in Booz Allen. So if you do join Booz Allen, you can see here the candidate experience journey map. So it's a visualization of who you'll meet, when you'll meet them, and a few of those checkpoints throughout the process. So we'll start with just while you begin that search, take a look at our website. If you have or haven't, you'll see that you can filter it by function, keywords, clearance, location, remote, hybrid, as we talked about and touched on before. So if you do see something that aligns with what you're looking for, we'd love for you to apply. And from there, each application is reviewed by a member of our recruiting team. And if it's a match, the recruiter will contact you and start the discussion. We've inserted a ton of checkpoints throughout that journey where the candidate can get feedback, we can get feedback on what's going well, how you can improve. And the biggest thing there is lean on your recruiter throughout that process. We're here to help you answer any questions, help you through the process, and really make it a seamless experience. If you, on that note, if you don't see something that fits your needs immediately, we definitely recommend you to join our talent community. You can share more detail about what you're interested in, and you'll get provided direct updates on upcoming events or relevant and personalized job alerts. So on our career page, you'll find more links and details around the candidate experience, as well as interview tips, benefits information, and all of the resources to get you thinking about that journey.
Yeah, and I want to add, like, I was on a webinar recently, and it was so encouraging because the guy admitted that he had applied like 3 times. And then he was like, he's fantastic. He was like on one of these calls. I think sometimes candidates can get very discouraged because maybe they apply and it's not a direct fit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, Babby, I'm just going to say it, but persistence does pay. And especially like, there's a company as large as Booz Allen, there's just a ton of positions out there, and things cycle through. So the reality is you might not get flagged or caught for this position, but being persistent and putting yourself out there, showing your own like skills, passion points, participating in webinars, asking questions, don't consider a one-time rejection a forever rejection. I think that sometimes we have to kind of insulate ourselves from that fear and say like, hey, it's okay to be persistent. Recruiters know there's like a thin line between persistence and stalking sometimes, but I would err on the side of persistence every time. I don't know, does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
If I could just add to that, like we get new positions every day. I mean, and I've got, I don't know, I got like about 100 people or so. And that's my chunk of Booz Allen is a very, very small piece of it, right? So I'm getting new positions on like a regular basis. Across Booz Allen, Babby would know more, but it's amazing how much, I don't know if a dynamism or dynamic change there is in terms of what we're looking for. And sometimes we can plan it. So I know this big contract's coming up. I know these things. Okay, that's fine. That's one. Another one is something that's totally unplanned. Hey, I got a client that I just found out about this need yesterday, and oh my gosh, I wish I had 3 people 2 days ago. And so that, and of course, then you call a recruiter like, Babby, sorry, I need this person yesterday, right? Which is always the case. But that happens so often. And so, I would just, like you said, Lindy, like don't get discouraged because that changes at a crazy pace.
Yeah, and I think something else to touch on there throughout the recruiting process is we are in constant dialogue with all of our recruiters. There's a ton of us. Let's say in one position wasn't a fit for you, that does not mean that ends your journey with us. So we're sharing candidates. Managers are consistently saying, hey, this person was a great fit for this type of position. I know you have one coming up. So continue, as everybody said, be persistent. We encourage you to apply to whatever you see and are interested in. So just to touch on that there.
And a few questions about applicant tracking systems versus contacting recruiters. The answer is both and. Always, I say, like, yes, you want to get into their system, but then also don't be passive. I think being active in managing your career, that's always the takeaway I get from these calls too. I see these people who are doing amazing things for Booz Allen, but they've been really proactive in like looking for opportunities because there are a ton out there. And you can really build a career with Booz Allen and move on to different things and have new opportunities and be supporting Artemis and NASA and Space Force and all of these cool missions. But you won't get there if you're not keeping your eyes out and looking at what's out there. So that's really cool and really great to see. Are there any other takeaways or last kind of for the peanut gallery here? Anyone who is on the call, anything we didn't ask about or touch on that you wanted to highlight on our webinar today? Last chance. There we are. Well, thank you so much for everyone who participated. Again, I did not get to all the questions. If you had nuanced questions like how do I get a job in Hawaii or those kind of things, someone else will follow up with you later. But for now, I really want to thank the panelists. Every time I'm on one of these, I really want to work for Booz Allen, which is a problem for me. They really care about their people. It's not rote. I've done enough of these to know when it's fake, but these people really care about the career journeys and the people that they hire. So if you see an opportunity there, I encourage you to pursue it, open the door, join us. The world can't wait, and you'll get to go to space. I mean, maybe, who knows? That's what I tell my kids. Mars is out there. I'll never see you again, but space awaits. So thank you so much. And Sarah, I'm going to get a cat video. I'm not joking. I once had 5 cats. Am I allowed to say that on a webinar? We're still live, but
I'm far outnumbering me there. So you get the crazy cat lady status.
I do. I mean, it's a shoe-in already. But thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who participated today.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.